Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. Well, I'm not quite sure what to call this particular video. Today I want to do a review of Vatican City #1 by Mark Millar and Per Berg. This is not exactly an independent comic, as you might have been able to guess by the fact that it's got the name Mark Millar on it. He's a very well-known name in comics and indeed on Netflix. And you may be wondering why I've chosen to do a video on this. After all, I've not really talked about Mark Millar's work before, but the real reason is because I'm interested in that other name on the book. If you followed this channel for a while, you know that I've reviewed a number of books from Narwhal Books. And the guy behind the name Narwhal is indeed Per Berg. It's very exciting to see him get a chance to hit the mainstream. I've always thought his art had immense potential, and clearly Mark Millar agreed with that because he's decided to work with him to release this book. It's very exciting to see, and the book itself is quite good. Not to tip my hand too much before we get into the nitty-gritty. So let's talk about the book. If you're already familiar with my standard format here, you may be expecting me to talk a little bit about the form factor. But unfortunately, I can't. I picked this up digitally, but I suspect it's your typical floppy. It's about 36 pages, give or take, and it's probably going to have a cover on it. So if you're familiar with the standards of mainstream publishing, I imagine that's what you'll get. This book is coming out through Dark Horse, and they're not a small indie company. They know how to put out a good quality book, or so I would imagine. The art is the real draw of this book for me. I have always loved Narwhal's style of illustration. I feel like it is very alive, it is full of movement, and the composition has always been quite good. That said, previously I have always cited Narwhal's biggest weakness as having a very loose and sketchy style that often flows but can sometimes look a little cartoony. He has definitely improved on this front by leaps and bounds over the past 5 years. He has gone from having a style that looks a little bit like spaghetti, wiggling its way across the page in a way that is very fascinating and lively, and has refined it and honed it into a much tighter, neater style that has all of that movement and energy in it, but is a lot cleaner to look at. It reads great on the page, and it still has that life and recognizable charm that I've always associated with Narwhal's characters. There's a bunch of shots in this manga that I really love, starting with that cover, which is dynamic, expressive, and dark. It really sets the tone for this chapter of the story. But my favorite may be an establishing shot inside the Vatican complex that is framed with, of all things, a yo-yo. I'm not sure if that's some kind of visual symbolism yet, but it is a brilliant page composition that I have gone back and looked at 3 or 4 times as I've been preparing this review. Another thing that I really love is looking at the buildings in this comic, and that's going to sound a little bit strange. What's so great about buildings? Well, previously, Narwhal has done a lot of different things to make buildings. He's had them drawn sketchily in the background. Sometimes he's done 3D mock-ups, and these have all worked pretty well. But in Vatican City, in a comic named Vatican City, the architecture is going to be pretty important. And Narwhal has managed to really bring it to the page in a way that feels organic with the rest of things around it. I'm not sure if he sketched or if he traced or, just had very good reference documents to look at. Whatever it is, it works quite well because these buildings look like they fit with the characters. The transition between foreground and background is very natural. I don't know if anyone else cares about that, but it is something that jumps out to me. It's very clear to me, and I'm glad to see that Narwhal has really upped his game here. His 3D work in the past was very neat and impressive and visually interesting, and I hope if he continues with something like Grand Prix, he will continue to utilize that technique. It has a lot of merit to it. But here in Vatican City, where we have a slightly more grounded story, having that hand-drawn architecture in the background, establishing the settings of Washington, D.C. early in the comic, and then later in, of course, Vatican City, Rome. That really helps ground us in this place that is going to be so important to the story. And it just feels really good to see it on the page. I don't know a whole lot about the process that was used to draw this, but it looks like these particular pages were drawn physically and then scanned and colored digitally. Regardless, a brush pen has been used to do a lot of very heavy and vibrant shadow work in this book. And it sounds weird to say vibrant shadows, but that is what it feels like. The use of light and shadow in this book is quite striking and really makes, the colors in the book pop. At the same time, it establishes this very moody lighting that is very appropriate to the story, which I very much like. Now, this could have been done digitally, but I suspect from a lot of the things I've seen Narwhal posting about on his Twitter that he's been using these brush pens he's been experimenting with to draw these pages, and it is a very good look for the comic. I really am impressed with all the different techniques he's worked out and the effort he's put into upping his game and bringing this comic to the page. And that leaves us with the story itself. This is part 1 of 3, so it is not a fully contained story, but it's pretty good. We, for the most part, focus on a man named Guido who is looking to join the Swiss Guard that guards Vatican City. We'll talk a bit more about him in a second, but the danger for Guido is that vampires have taken over most of the world, and they've overthrown the American government. They're probably moving through Europe very fast, and they're coming to the Vatican. They themselves cannot get onto the Vatican grounds because it's concentrated land, but they're very interested in the Vatican for some reason. If for nothing else, then because it's the last safe place on Earth. So Guido has to try and keep everyone alive, or at least everyone that he can get to alive. And he's got to do it by himself because all the actual Swiss Guard has been wiped out. After all, he's just a prospective hire. He hasn't actually joined up yet. So he's in a pretty bad place. He doesn't know the lay of the land very well. He's not an official Swiss Guard. And he's completely surrounded and cut off from the outside world. This volume sets up the conflict very well. It gives us a really good look at our hero's character and the situation he's in, and it gives us a limited but meaningful understanding of what the bad guys are up to. Pretty much everything you could want in the first act of a 3-act story. I like it a lot, and there's a lot of tiny little flourishes in there that I think are pretty cool. One of those is the fact that even though Guido is not an official Swiss Guard yet, he is wearing a striped jacket that has the colors blue and red, 2 of the 3 colors in the Swiss Guard's tricolor uniforms, visually symbolizing the fact that he is, at least in part, a Swiss Guard already, even though he's not fully qualified yet. There's also a really good scene where we get to see Guido confront the vampires on opposite sides of the consecrated ground, and there's some very clever moves by the opposition. The vampires have a pretty good strategy to get at what it is they're trying to get at. I will leave it to your imagination to figure out what exactly that is, but it's probably the first thing you would think of, too, if you were a vampire trying to take over the world and get into consecrated land. In short, Vatican City #1 has a very tightly written and well-conceived storyline to it. It's not complete yet, of course, but that is really to be expected. The details in the writing are quite good as well. Really, my only nitpick for the story itself is that Guido is Italian, and I'm pretty sure the Swiss Guard are supposed to be Swiss. I'm pretty sure that is a requirement. It's mandatory, not a suggestion. But, a little bit of wiggle room and that kind of thing to get your story going. Not terrible. It's not a big deal. Just a little something that jumped out to me as I was reading the book. So do I recommend it? Well, it's a pretty good, if dark, action flick. If you're not really into fairly violent vampire or, horror movie monster kind of tales, you may not like Vatican City very much because This is a bit of a grindhouse comic, and it doesn't shy away from that. If you're down with that, you'll probably enjoy Vatican City. The big thing to watch out for here, and this is something that I do harp on a lot, it's kind of an expensive book. It's $6 to pick up the first volume. And if there's 3 volumes, that's $18 for about 90 pages of story. That's not a terrible price point, but for floppies, it is kind of expensive. You can usually get, 120 page, softbound book for about $15. This is running a little bit expensive. And I am aware it's going through Dark Horse, so there is a bit of a markup for that traditional publishing house. They got to pay their distributors. They got to work in a cut for the comic shop. It is kind of a tough thing. But if you're a reader on a budget, you may want to wait for some kind of collected version, or at least make sure that Millar is going to stick the landing before you commit to the investment. I'm not going to kid you. These kind of investment is a bit of a big deal for the amount of entertainment you get. I enjoyed it a lot. I like what Millar is doing. I love seeing what Narwhal's doing. I'm glad he's getting this big shot to show up in mainstream comic shops. But comics are a pricey form of entertainment these days. It's certainly something to keep in mind. But I know that when I was reading Vatican City #1, I was never bored, and I was almost always 100% invested in what was going on. I will definitely be picking up Volume 2 as soon as it becomes available, and I'll be giving you my thoughts once I've read it. In the meantime, if you've read Vatican City #1, let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.